Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show. Mike, a long time no see. Hey, Chad, how are you? I'm going to step aside for...
Where have you been the last 30 seconds?
Not far enough from my desk. I need to amend that. Chad, I'll be right back.
How's it going, Chad?
Going good, Mike. How you been, man?
I've been freaking insane.
That's good stuff.
I think so, maybe.
You know, and you throw enough shit against the wall, some of it's going to stick.
Dude, my biggest problem right now is I've really done my complete referral system for the last 2 years, and I've got more stinking business prospects than I can handle. And I did a shit job of preparing more people in the organization to be able to handle it.
No, I get it, man. I get it. No, that's good. Hopefully that allows you to be able to pick and choose, be a little more selective.
Oh yeah, I'm not onboarding any new clients till September, October right now.
Wow.
I mean, I literally am oversubscribed. Luckily, I listen.
Hey, Mike, I can handle some of those clients.
Well, you're going to have to be able to walk and talk my book. Can I borrow your car?
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah. So, but there will be a licensing program coming because I can't meet the demand. Tim Rohde, highly suspect individual there.
That's awesome.
I get that a lot.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
I didn't see you there, man. My fault.
Big Coach Joe. Big Joe.
There he is from Ohio. Yes.
Only thing missing is a cigar.
Yeah. If only we had some scrub from Wisconsin.
There you go. I heard Wisconsin in there.
Eric, you're here too. Man, I'm shocked. My fault. Hey, I'm excited about this afternoon, brother. I'm really excited.
Yeah, who wouldn't be excited about a Tuesday afternoon? Everyone's excited about Tuesday afternoons.
Yes, especially when other people create opportunity. I like that.
Damn, I wish I had done that.
Well, I wish you'd done it twice.
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Hey, man.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, you need to warn everybody that we're lathered up. And
Yeah, Mike and I just recorded an impromptu podcast. This is what happens when Mike and I connect. Go ahead.
I said, I noticed Mike has an unusual amount of momentum this early. I mean, it's not unusual, but it's exceptional today.
We were talking about owner dependence
it's sales.
and sales.
Look at that.
Sales, Chad. By the way, Chad, a sales expert. Yeah, Chad. We were talking about getting the sales function off of, God, it's such a nuanced topic, but really getting the sales function off of the business owner's desk, right? Because if we don't get sales off the business owner's desk, which is typically one of the last things they like, I will not let go. You know, you can sell everything. You can sell 20%. I'm going to keep the other 80, you know.
I don't know if getting it off of the desk is as big a problem as keeping it from coming back on. That was my 20 to 30-year experience, is that you have it off and then something shifts. The person leaves, they go away, they take another job, whatever. And all of a sudden it's back. And it's like, and now the saw is dull and you got to start again with a dull saw. I don't know if anybody else has had that experience.
Wow. Yeah, Tim. Yes, Tim, because what you're getting at a couple of things. One, lack of process and collaborative accountability, right? And B, succession planning. Like if Chad is our star salesperson and Chad gets poached, Chad leaves, Chad, I'm sorry, got hit by a bus. Now what? Big eyes.
So it's not off your desk if you just gave it to one other person.
That's exactly. Yeah, the risk is still right there, man.
I was actually going to say they actually never let go of it. They just let it go to somebody else and they kept their fingers on it. That's why it came back onto their desk.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's an issue of confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so often you're basically transferring a Joseph Campbell mythology concept versus an actual real sales process.
Yeah.
Good morning,
Steve, thank you for the follow-up last week. I meant to get back to you and acknowledge your message, but I appreciate you following up the meeting with your input. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, man. So a lot going on. You know what I have over on this? Go ahead, please.
Art, you posted this morning, that one that I sent you about Google and their ads.
Joe, I'm sorry. After I posted it, I realized that I should have given you a shout out. So I'll go back and edit it and give you a shout out.
That's fine. Well, why don't you kind of explain it? Because I think it's tied to the relevance to the owner taking a sales role and hanging on to a line of business that. So go ahead and kind of explain.
Yeah. Well, Joe sent a post to me. He texted me a post this morning by a woman talking about how Google is in scramble mode and they have clung to, and man, I'm going to stop myself from going Vesuvius on this, but the fact that Google has clung to an increasingly stale and outdated business model in a world where Perplexity and ChatGPT are thriving and replacing Google. I don't know about you, but I have Chat and especially Perplexity is my go-to, and anyone I tell about it very quickly comes back and it's like, oh my God, Perplexity is so much better than a Google search. And Google's like, well, we don't have any eyeballs on our ads. So now they're trying to come back and reinvent themselves. And her post is excellent. It's on, Joe, we'll post it can you please post it in the community? I grabbed it and posted it on LinkedIn. And with all apologies, Joe, I should have given you credit for sharing it. Guys, we all know, and you feel free to name them if you want. You don't have to. I'm not asking you to. But we all know about technology businesses and associations that are not innovating. And innovation is the crazy eight of growth, right? Innovation is the thing. Innovation is the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. It is the thing. And you're welcome, Mike. And this is what happens when I have several cups of coffee and I'm on with Garrison for the whole morning. But these businesses are failing to innovate, and Google here has failed to innovate, and other businesses are disrupting their presence, their business model. They're disrupting the heck out of them and grabbing eyeballs. I spend a fraction of the time I used to on Google powered stuff.
Yeah, but you see this all the time, right? It reminds me of community banking, right? So there are cycles in every industry, and tech is not immune to it. And so, like, I have no pity for Google whatsoever because I'm an Apple person, right? So, like, Google is trying to turn the Titanic. They've been a really dominant, incredibly successful, world-dominating firm.
Innovator, right?
Based upon ads, right? But the problem is that when you're at the top of the market making that kind of money, having that kind of influence, having that kind of dominance, innovation tends to support the paradigm. It doesn't challenge it, right? And so I think that's the problem that Google had, is innovation shifted from let's disrupt the market to let's continue to expand our profit. And all of a sudden you've got this huge organization. It's not going to be the same. We name the companies, right? But banking, it happens the same way. Community banks rise because there's a lack of customer service. There's holes in the marketplace because banks have gotten too big. Then they roll up the community banks and you've got your next regional banks, which merge. And then all of a sudden, 20, 30 years later, you've got community banks. And we're on the second cycle that I've seen of that in my career. It's going to happen in financial services within the next 5 to 10 years.
Which is what you and I were just talking about in our impromptu hot seat. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Silvana.
Yes. I mean, it goes right to what Joe would.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I can't begin to tell you how hot this ray of sunshine is on my forehead.
It'd be really cool if you get a sunburn right there.
I'll just stand here and immolate. So how's everyone doing this morning? I'm sorry, Mike and I were on a tear, and I will calm down, turn the steering wheel over to you guys. I apologize. What's on everybody's mind this morning? Well, I know it ain't nothing.
You really want to know what's on everybody's mind. At least in my area, it's doom and gloom. You're talking about that, Mike, and I have to tell you, I've been in so many meetings. I'm talking to so many people, and for the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, it's really, really doom and gloom.
Yeah, here it's really hard on consultants near Baltimore.
No, I'm talking to real estate agents. I mean, the market is changing tremendously, and everybody's trying to figure out what is the information that affects my business. So I'm putting together an event on April 8th, and it's two-part, is how the transition affects small businesses, and then how does GovCon, succeed in this environment. And so, I don't know.
I would say, Silvana, like I sent out, George, I think, got a copy of it. Eric and Tim will on the second version, but like Mark Schaefer, incredible writer about marketing, just shared some stuff about the realities of what's out there. Like, this is the greatest time for your clients ever. This is the greatest time.
I would argue, Mike, it's also the greatest time for everybody on this call. I started Oak Hill in the Great Recession. There's nothing better than a great evil for consultants and people who can really help. I'm not talking about people who are hanging their shingle out and don't know anything. I'm talking about us on the call who have some value to add to clients. There's no better time than when the sky is falling than to walk in and calm everything and help those clients really mature and grow through a difficult time. And so I just challenge all of us, we ought to be stepping up right now. We shouldn't be sticking our head in the sand. We should be stepping up and saying, hey, now's our time. Now's when we can differentiate ourselves from all the wannabes, because we've got the ability to help all those people.
You know what, Eric? That's a great point. I'll just say for 2020 and 2021, with COVID, I mean, those 2 years were my best 2 years ever.
Absolutely. Hey, Eric, I got a question for you. So, and let me put it to Chad as well, right? Client selection, when things are disruptive, becomes really, really important from my perspective. Do you guys, I'll give you two scenarios. You tell me what you think. Scenario number one, in the past, like 30 years ago, I would try and save companies right now. The ones that I knew somebody in and I really had an emotional tie to and was not successful. This time around, I am looking for the same people you would look for if you were a high-end financial advisor. Who are the people that are heavily capitalized, that have cash on the sidelines looking for opportunities? What do you guys think about that? When you're looking at client acquisition right now, what companies are you looking for? Types of things characteristics are you looking for in this time?
To be honest, Mike, maybe a slight variation of what you're saying. I'm looking for those clients that have potential. And what do I mean by that? I'm looking for the client that I see something that's obviously not fully enumerated out in the marketplace. I'm looking for that person, if you're talking about a sports figure, you're looking for that person who clearly has talent, but hasn't really articulated that talent to the full extent that they have the ability to. You see something in them and you're like, man, if they just had the right team around them, or if they just had this one thing, they'd be on fire, right? And that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for in the marketplace. Is I go in, they're open to help and change, and they've got something, but they haven't been able to make it really, they haven't been able to light the fire completely, right? And so that's the characteristic. It's an intangible. We all know it when we see it, but that's what I'm looking for. Chad, I don't know how you'd answer.
Yeah, I mean, for me at this point, one of the biggest challenges for me is peeling that onion back to truly find what is their main pain point. So for me, I would love to get my hands on, business owners that they know it's hurting bad enough now to where they know they had to do something.
Just pull the damn tooth out, right?
Yeah. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off and swallow your pride and step up, put your big boy pants on, and let's make something happen.
To answer your question, Mike, that's a very interesting one. I'll go with the second one. I am definitely a big fan of trying to do anything I can to help people, even if their situation doesn't look as good. The problem with that is that it's tricky. And I feel like that's a 50-50. And maybe it's not even 50-50. So the question is, at this point in time, where is our time best spent? And I feel like the other companies that have something that it's a good foundation, but they haven't quite figured out that recipe to get them where they need to be. Or at this particular point, again, I've met companies that have laid like hundreds of people and they don't exist anymore. Their contracts have gone. So it's a little bit tricky. So going back to that, I'm thinking, help the ones that have a fighting chance and they have a certain starting point that can help you refine the recipe versus starting to get a recipe from scratch. Or if you do that, then if you have 10 clients, have 2 of those and 8 of the second one. Otherwise, if you have 10 clients that are all like, 50-50 calls, it's a little bit tricky.
Hey, Mike, let me just jump in with one quick point here, please. Savannah, my dad taught me an invaluable lesson when I was a kid and we were watching MASH together. My dad was an Army doctor before he became a doctor in private practice, and we would watch MASH together, our whole family. And one day my brother and I asked my dad, how does this all work? And he said, look, guys, the most important role in a MASH hospital is triage. The smartest doctor has to be out at triage, because if you don't pick the right patients coming in, you're not going to save the maximum amount of patients. So this is a triage question.
Right on.
Who are the people who are going to go into surgery? If you pick the ones that are at the worst stage, which is the natural reaction, you might actually save a couple of those, but you'll lose some of the ones that could have been saved easily, but didn't look as bad at initial contact, and the probability on those ones that are really, really bad is low. And so you gotta use that triage tool to make those decisions to decide who's going to get the surgery, and that's tough.
So I have a follow up to my question, George.
Yeah,
and so the follow up to because I think the triage is apt, because as a lifeguard, you got to make sure you don't drown too. Right? And so option 1 is out. You shouldn't be trying to save companies that aren't worth saving. But how do we figure out which of the companies that are worth saving, that are and so mine is, and what I've started doing, I don't accept new clients unless I'm willing to take a performance fee, right? So I've got my standard retainer, but all new clients going forward are going to be evaluated based upon my belief at month 4 or month 5 that I can drop my retainer significantly, enact a performance fee because of growth that has already occurred, and have me and the client share together. And that's one of the ways, George, I want to get your feedback. That's one of the ways where I'm trying to get my brain to really push myself to figure out who is going to be the client that is committed and going to grow. And obviously clarity is a huge part of that.
Here's what I love about that answer. It's you are saying, I'm willing to go at risk with you, Madam Business Owner, and I am willing to hook my family's well-being to your family's well-being, because that's what we're talking about at the end of the day. And in C3D, we talk about several things when we're talking about qualifying clients: vulnerability, the willingness to be transparent, deeply transparent and committed to transparency, willingness. What we're hearing is evidence, not just like, I feel like maybe they'd be willing to change. No, we want to see evidence of a willingness to, and a commitment to, and an intent to change. And those are all qualifiers of a client. This goes to your point, Silvana. Eric, I'm so glad. It's like we have a mind meld. I'm like, what we're talking about here is triage. We are talking about triaging. Oh, there you are, Mike.
You're picking who's going to die.
And we're talking about resilience. And I'm going to throw one more ingredient into the pot. And then Silvana, over to you. I'll shut up. What I'm hearing at the center of the spider's web is that, okay, we've had these first 3 months here of, wow, this doesn't look exactly like we thought it would. This is not situation normal. But what I'm feeling at the middle of the spider's web is people like, all right, well, boat's not going down. Things are going. And I think we are going to see clients now, poking their head up out of the gopher hole and saying, to Eric's point, and these are the people we want, like, hey, I think this is a time for me to get some fresh ideas from outside, some fresh perspective from outside. So on that, please, Silvana, fire away.
Okay. So I love the direction this is going. And Mike, there was an excellent question. Questions make a huge difference in facilitating this. So triage is very important. Certain questions is very important. But what I was hoping is maybe we collectively here look at both qualitative and quantitative. How do we use clarity? What drivers on clarity make sense to take a look at right now collectively? And we all sort of compare notes about, should it be the profit? Should it be the revenues? Should it be, what are some of one or two or three drivers that we can take a look at in Clarity, in addition to their growth mindset? They really truly wanting to do something, and then put them together, the top 5, and say, okay, this is my triage, or this is our collective compare note triage. This is how we go about it, and that's what matters. I haven't quite narrowed down the clarity, the indisputable drivers that can help me make decisions on these people. So maybe we can talk about that.
Yes. Oh my God. Hang on one sec. Silvana, I know that you have a copy of this. Teresa, you have a copy. Tim, you have a copy. Steve, you have a copy. Mike has a copy. This is the playbook, and the playbook is the growth conversation in tab 5. And the growth conversation, Silvana, is where, if you follow the script, the growth conversation is where you're going to qualify the client as to intent and commitment. And then I would say, and this was my answer to Larry's question that led to my conversation with Mike, et cetera, Dimension 1. Dimension 1, predictable profits and cash flow. And if you start at the beginning of Dimension 1, and let's just leave it in a line, effective senior leadership, people productive and loyal, high recurring revenues, margins at or above the industry norm. If you can get those, let's get those. But that's half of Dimension 1. You will have done an astonishing amount of good for your client, right?
But George, isn't that Dimension 1 is the place to be, but isn't that exactly the place where you're going to see the potential too? Hey, they have the potential to be above level margins, and they aren't executing on it right now.
Yes.
Because of X, Y, and Z. And I would argue, Senate, just an answer to your question, while we can have some underlying things that we all agree on are good indicators, I think each one of us is going to pick up on different things. I would bet that Chad is looking at different characteristics of a company because he's focused on the sales part, and I might be focused on the financial part. And so, what I'm looking for exactly might be different than what Chad's looking for exactly. While the underlying base level of Dimension 1 could be a good level set for all of us, the dynamics of what we're each going to look for are probably going to be different.
Hey, I see Steve's hand is up.
Yeah, that was a great point, Eric. Steve, man, fire away.
Just to add to all the voices of experience here. So another answer to your question, or at least a partial answer to your question, Silvana, is Michalowicz's book, The Pumpkin Plan.
Pumpkin. Okay.
Pumpkins are relevant to everything.
At least in Michalowicz's mind. And he does a good job of drawing analogies. But anyway, one of his fundamentals is, to answer your question, and he's got a template to do this, define your ideal client. And your ideal client, with this smattering of people here on the call might be different for each of us, but that's figure out your criteria, define it, then probably revisit it every quarter. What I'm attracted to, you might find offensive, and vice versa, and that sort of thing. So it's personality, it's business characteristics, all that. But that's one of the fundamentals for any business.
Hold on a second. Mike puts his hand up?
Go figure.
It's called leadership for other people by example. Steve, that's really powerful. Like, I got asked the other day, what did I feel was one of the most important things that gets missed? And it was in a business owner roundtable I was doing for a client in Charlotte. And I told him, I said, I'm not understanding what an ideal client is, both subjectively and objectively, back to what Silvana was saying. Yeah. And specifically defining that out in a replicable way, and then understanding how do you do client acquisition? Because most of the companies that I work with fail or have a lack of confidence in their marketing before I come in because of what you said, Steve. They haven't defined that ideal client. It's too broad, and we can't get traction as an organization. Fabulous point, sir.
Yes. And so just one follow-up. So now, one of the major point of there is that many businesses fail because they're busy trying to service shitty clients, to put it in layman's terms, as opposed to getting rid of them and then focusing on the ones they love. Sorry, George.
No, I love that, Steve. And if you dig into look in deep into level 2 and you participate in C3D, you will hear, listen, you need to understand your profitability by product and by customer, because you, in all likelihood, have customers that you should say, thank you, love you, good luck. I release you to one of my competitors. And that's a hard thing to do. Mike, I mean, you talk, let's talk about it within the confines of wealth advisors,
Hey,
right?
like I always say, drown your competition with mediocrity, right? So if they don't understand client acquisition cost to include the cost of how many meetings are necessary to not only, meet with, but also close a client and onboard them. If they don't understand that, then give them all of your bad referrals as much as you can, which is one of the reasons why you should always, I'm dead serious, man. Like, if you identify a competitor that wants to grow and is willing to take your handoffs, you're going to win because now you're in control of their client acquisition process, which means when you decide to turn it off, So anyways, that's Marcus Sheridan, right? Marcus Sheridan, they ask you answer his example of having his blogs being featured on his competitors' websites because they were so good, right? Ironically, it's kind of terrifying to think that you make more money by featuring your local competitors' content because some people won't click to his website.
That's so funny.
By
Hey,
the way,
Teresa, thank you for sharing.
I don't know if you guys are looking at the chat. I opened it, Teresa. This is very interesting. I appreciate it.
Teresa just shared a client intake form, which has got some great stuff in there. Thank you, Teresa. Net giver. Yeah, man. This is a time to talk to clients about resilience. Hey, and I would be saying I don't work directly with clients, but I might be saying, and guys, your feedback, please. I might be saying to a client, you know what? This is a time for you to lean forward, to get out over your skis and to outcompete your weaker peers, right? This may be a time to acquire, to make judicious acquisitions. That's a little more complicated, but this is a time to attack the market, identify the best clients that you can win and possibly steal from your competitors. Well, that's the nature of the beast. And I want to help you create predictable profits and cash flow with this launch pad that we can then use for the rocket, right? And then we're going to get it as this uncertainty boils off the market, that you are going to be in the best position in your niche to create sustainable growth and to leverage this tough time and to leverage the resilience you're building and the strength you're building into your organization to go out there and capitalize and really kick it. Does that make sense? Mike, you raised your hand. You're shocking me.
I got the quote for everybody, and this is the beginning point for my client acquisition process going forward with the disruption that I see coming. It's from that Mark Schaefer case study. And it basically says this: everyone reading this post has one goal for their business. You want to be seen, heard, and discovered. You want to be the signal against the noise, and the noise is worse than ever. To stand out, competent doesn't cut it. Competent is the new invisible. Competent is what gets replaced. The middle of the road is where roadkill happens. In a world drowning in meh, I love that. Disruption isn't just an option, it's survival. The AI revolution isn't coming for the remarkable, it's coming for the replaceable, and most marketing today is precisely that. And so what I'm looking for, because of my background in referrals, I'm looking for these clients, these organizations between 10 million to 40 million a year in revenue, financial services companies, where we've got great culture, but we don't have what I would call an effective utilization rate on internal referrals from clients. And I'm coming in, we're going to drive that. The path to profitability is less than a year. Like, we've got action steps and everything. And that's what I'm looking for. Is I'm looking for remarkable companies, to quote Eric, that aren't, I can't remember that word. They aren't presenting to their talent effectively.
You know what I love about the through line here, guys, and you're all saying it, and you're making my day. You're basically saying, I don't work with just anyone. I work with businesses where I can deliver a high ROI. I work with businesses that are committed to generating a high ROI. I think that's the through line here. A return on the investment of time and treasure in the process of becoming resilient, in the process of creating sustainable growth. Am I hearing you correctly?
Well, no, you can't. The client isn't going to appreciate what we're doing as much unless they're willing to come along for the right. Like, I always like the gym analogy, right? If you're not willing to come to the gym, you're not going to get the result. And then you're going to look at the pay you're paying me every month and go, hey, why am I paying for this personal trainer? They're not doing anything for me. But often that's not the trainer's fault. That's the person, whether they want it. So the first level has to be whether they want to change or not. And by the way, as a quick plug, I'm halfway through Tim's course on change. You all should be doing Tim's course on change. Every one of you should be doing Tim's course on change. It's outstanding. Yeah, it's awesome. So, but they need to want to change first and foremost, or we ought not be working with them. But then secondly, and Mike, I love your point, or it was Mark Schaefer's point, competency is just table stakes. Competency gets you to the table like everybody else who's around the table. That doesn't differentiate you at all. Competency is just getting you to the table. Now you got to differentiate yourself at the table, right? And that's what I think, tools like Clarity do, tools like Tim's change, and being able to bring value and create that ROI. And then the client says, wow, you did that really well, and it wasn't so painful, and I've gotten some progress out of it. Can you please do more of that?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
If you're going to be a growth driver, why shouldn't you be paid for growth? And if you think about if you're working with a finite amount of clients, like I don't know how many clients everyone on the call can sustain within, the different levels, but like you got to think about it. If your model is coaching, you're going to be locking in a price at a certain level. It's really hard to increase that generally. But if you come in at consulting and you're charging a performance fee, now you're finding the clients that the performance fee entices and motivates them too. And all of a sudden your client maybe starts at a $10,000 a month retainer. In year 2, you're up to a $20,000 net payment per month, and your client's ecstatic to do it because of what you've grown.
You're right, don't you? Because it's a fraction of what they just got out of it, right?
Who's doing that, by the way? Who's selling performance fees?
We do not enough.
It's pretty rare.
Not made it perfect, but that's part of my goal is to add more on a performance fee. I used to do value-based consulting before. And so the trick though is you just have to be the right person and the right setup. But I do like the idea that going in, they have skin in the game by paying you. You have a skin in the game by betting on your ability to get them results. So not every client takes it, but the one that take it are probably the type of client I would want or we would want to, because they see the win-win.
And you're looking for that client. I know I'm stating the obvious, but the client that is not looking to get away with something with you, but the client that is committed, that is excited to write you a huge check. And I wish Steve Cummings was on this call. Who heard Steve Cummings? Were we in Florida? I think we were down in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, when he gave Steve is so busy he can't be on these calls, and he operates, I believe, at 100% success fee, and he is growing by leaps and bounds. He is no longer Steve Cummings. I mean, he is resolve, and this is what they do, and he's killing it.
Mike's point before, though, you got to be really discerning if you're going to take people for success fee, because they got to be willing. You got to be able to measure the thing. It's easier to do for sales and it's easier to do for transactions. It's harder to do when you get to numbers like gross margin and EBITDA, because they're manipulatable, and you just got to be careful of that. And you got to be able to trust the person on the other side that they're going to honor the spirit of the agreement.
Yes. That was my point about the person trying to get over. Yeah. Go ahead. Mike, you're pointing at
hands up. You have 2 hands up, people. Let's honor the people that put their hand.
Okay, who had their hand up first?
I think Tim did.
Steve did. Steve was up first. Go ahead.
Minor addition to the conversation here. I didn't get a chance to talk to this guy, but I did listen to a briefing by a consultant, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And his business model is 10-10-10. 10K retainer, 10% on incremental profit growth, and 10% on equity growth. Just a data point.
Yeah, interesting.
I'll take that with a qualified client.
10% in retainer or 10K in retainer?
10K, I'm sorry.
Okay. 10K in retainer, 10% on success or profit, you said?
Equity growth and profit growth.
Profit growth. See, this is why, sorry, I know, Tim, you have the hands up, but my follow-up question to what we're talking about is, let's talk a little bit about the matrix, or what works, or what have you seen work? Because I do agree that EBITDA and profit are, could be fungible or could be looked at a different angle. So what would be a measurable, quantifiable metric for the value base? Please go ahead, team. Sorry, I didn't know.
Just increase
Like revenue, but I didn't know what you guys thought. Revenue is non-fungible.
I'm doing revenue.
but it's straight.
Revenue is an easy thing to measure. It is a good thing, but not everybody is working directly on revenue, right? If you're working on productivity, revenue may or may not grow, because we go in and often reduce revenue for clients and make them more money. So, you just got to be careful about the measure you pick.
That would be savings.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. So I was just going to say that this is an awesome topic and suggest or request to Georgia we maybe dedicate an episode to this. I'm happy to see this unpacked right now. Maybe we're triaging this and moving the right patient into the room at the right time. But, Mike has done some talking with Larry and I about this over the last few weeks and is starting to, land on an executable format. And I'd love to collect best practices from everybody. One of the things that somebody said on one of these calls a few weeks ago was that when you get the client past the yes point, like I want to do something with you, and you're starting to talk about price and what is all this going to cost. I forget who said it, but somebody responded and said, well, if you decide you want to proceed, there's a variety of ways that we can structure the pricing. So, it was kind of in a how to avoid the price objection. There's a variety of ways we could proceed with the pricing, so we can take a look at that. If you'd like, I'll get back to you with a proposal. I think it was on the subject of not giving them a number or whatever right away, or not giving them just one way to pay. If as a group, we come up with like, let's say, multiple choice ways to work in or not work in a performance fee that scales up or down with the retainer, that would be tremendously valuable. It would be like Silvana was talking about, and I was happy to let you run there because you're talking about a matrix or multiple choice that we could narrow it down and maybe give them 2 or 3 options. But that would be so helpful. So all I wanted to say was I love where this is going, and I think it'd be cool to drill way into it. Maybe we can do it yet today.
Yeah, just follow that up, Tim. Another community that I'm part of basically does, here's 3 options, suggests 3 options for payments, and that's, retainer of X. And then X will go down when it's 10% of some incremental, whether it's equity value or whatever. 3 options, and they always pick the one in the middle, textbook. But nonetheless, there's a variety you can handle.
Yeah.
What's the end in mind in this conversation? Is it maximizing your hourly rate? Is it not missing out on a home run with a client? Or is it more of scalability through consistent delivery of a package? What you're showing us, you sound like you're adding a series of different levels of service and creating some internal friction on a scale basis. We have limited resources. I said, I don't know. What is it? Maximize the hourly rate or long-term return? We won't want to miss out on that wave as it comes in with one of our clients.
Well, what's your question?
Or is it just
Joe, what's your question about, and how does it?
Well, we're talking about pricing and variations, a way of billing. What's the end in mind? What's the final goal?
Add to your list. One of the reasons to do it, and it's been what we've been talking about for most of the call, is to attract the right client. If we're giving them the opportunity that we share in their success, that attracts a different client the client who's just looking for the lowest cost solution provider, which is a different client.
Heck yes.
It's kind of like this. The way I'd put it is and Tim gets blamed for this because he's convenient and he's close. But like this concept of being oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley, Chad, if you haven't read that book, you'll love it. I guarantee. If you don't like it, I'll buy it from you. So don't buy Kindle. Right? But the deal is this: I think most consultants and coaches, Steve, I know you got something on this. I think most coaches and consultants don't operate off of a full pipeline. So they work on replacement theory, right? And I find, I'm not talking about you, Joe, but I find most questions like that reflect that mentality. And so my concept is I'm not enrolling new clients that haven't already committed until now September, October, and it might get pushed back to November because I've got more clients that I can handle right now, and I've got 3 that are committed at different levels. And so number one, I keep raising my retainer. So I doubled it. It's now 10,000 a month if I'm going to do retainer. Then I'm using and I'm leveraging that to eliminate without telling people they can't afford me, right? I'm using that for people. If they go 10 grand a month, I'd never pay that. I said, well, great. Hey, no problems. Who can I refer you to? Then the performance fee is because I've got a good friend who rebuked me that I wasn't charging enough based on the results that my clients get. And he said, you have to start charging performance fees, Steve. And he said, you start at 10,000 and then you do it. But I get the complexity thing. For me, for my individual consulting with ideally 4 clients, maybe 5, I want to have $500,000 of revenue. So I want every client's got to be over $100,000 annual for my system to work for me individually. And then other things I'm doing need to generate between $500 to $1 million of revenue, right? For my little consulting practice. And so what's driving it is the design of my business that I want to do, right? And so if I'm making 100 to 120,000 a year off of clients, I find that I'm really excited about talking to them.
Joe, I would
Go ahead, Steve.
the simple answer to your question is we're just talking about options for an equitable balance between value provided and value gained, period.
Sure.
And since we all run businesses, there's no harm in maximizing our profit.
Well, and it's driven by the value we're delivering, right?
Yeah.
And Mike, you make a really good point. By valuing yourself correctly, you are qualifying clients, and this is what other people pay me. It is worth it. I have referenceable clients. I have reference clients. And if this is too rich for you, I completely understand. And I have, perhaps I can help you find someone.
I mean, for me, every time I've doubled my retainer over the last year and a half, right? Every time I've doubled my retainer, I've doubled my pipeline of qualified prospects.
Price is generally never the issue, right? I mean, unless you've charged something that's just dumb, but price is generally never the issue. It's value. People will pay top dollar for value. Yeah. What's that?
Just add a little bit. Go ahead.
No, Silvana. No, I was just going to bring it back to clarity and say, listen, you're charging based on value. You're competing based on value, not price. And that is. So sorry, Silvana, please go ahead. Fire away.
No, I just wanted to get back to Joe and his initial question, and I just wanted to double check. So he mentioned friction connected to the price package, for lack of a better term. Instead of just going time for money, it is time for money plus the incentive or like the value-based type of assessment. So if I understood it correctly, what he was trying to say is that is there a concern that maybe there is friction added to getting that yes by having such a price package? And my take, based on what I've seen before and we're talking right now, no. Now, all depends on, again, what Mike said. What is your business and what you're trying and how you're going about it? When I was doing tech consulting, I always said, or even strategy and management consulting, I always used to say to my client, I'm here to work myself out of a project and a job. I'm here to solve your problem and go. I'm not here to just linger around just to, make a living. So going back to this, I don't see it as a friction, as adding the value-based stuff. I see it as validating my value or what I know I bring to the table or what I can bring to the table. I think if we get stuck only on time for money or just the consulting fee, I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table, and I don't see it as a friction. But then again, there are different goals in each practices and there are different clients, and you work through that first.
Each situation might be a little bit different, but this incentive-based compensation potentially reduces friction because we all know it's easier to spend money you don't have.
Can I share my screen for just a moment, guys? Would that be okay?
Hold on.
Oh, no, George.
Hang on one sec here. What do we have? All right. So you should be able to see here. Is this going to start? Okay, good.
Hey, look, I already bought C3D. What's the deal?
No, this is, so guys, if you think in terms of what we're getting at, something that goes to process, right? And process is very important. So you might have a meeting. One business model can be to approach your client with projects that stack where they always have an out. They can get out after each project. You're like, okay, hey, this is going to cost you $25,000. And then if you want to move forward and you think I can be helpful, great. If not, you'll have what you purchased and we will part ways. And I'm always here if you need me. So we have sort of the discovery meeting, and those are typically free. And in that meeting or in a subsequent meeting, so this is one or two, you bring back your discovery report, you discuss it with the client, you educate the client, and you plan the next step, right? The planning here is the next step. Then you have the option. You can say, well, I wonder how your senior leadership team views your strategic capacity. That is a project, right? We're not in an engagement yet. And those SLT report is incredibly valuable, and potentially a workshop, right? To get with the SLT and say, hey, kids, we need a consensus view about what the company can actually do today. And then we have deep analysis. Now, imagine if you're saying, hey, okay, well, we got the senior team. What if we all got together and developed our understanding of strategic capacity? Would that be valuable to you, Madam CEO? How valuable? Well, I charge $10,000. $10,000 even to a $2 million business is not a deal stop, a showstopper. At a $10 million business, if they won't pay it, that is a qualifier, right? Okay, so now we're going to do a deep analysis, ideally, with the SLT in the room, but also could be done just with the CEO. Terrific. You're delivering huge value. Hey, we have this consensus view, still a project, right? And now we're going to come back and we're going to report and discuss what we learned in our deep analysis with the CEO and, if appropriate, the senior leadership team. Still a project, still on a project basis. Your client isn't like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to pay George? Then we can say, okay, well, this is the data we would need to create a strategic plan. Aside, think about how educated your client is about strategic capacity and their business's ability to predictably and sustainably grow FCF, free cash flow, okay? You have educated the heck out of it. You've already left an indelible mark on this organization. Now we can get into planning. Let's take the data and together workshop a plan. Let's create a strategic plan with buy-in, discussion, etc. Now we're getting into, talk about a qualified client, right? At this point, you can say, well, I can give you the plan and say, good luck. I can give you the plan and get you into 90 that has this embedded in it. Good luck. Or I can help you. I will be your co-pilot, your co-driver as we take this plan out and turn it into reality. For that, I charge $10,000 a month. Now, if you start adding these up, you've already compared to the value you're delivering, you're getting pennies, right? You are delivering immense value to the organization. This organization is now looking in the mirror and understanding what they're seeing. They've got a body scan. They're understanding, dare I say, their DNA. Now we can take it out on the track. And this is where we're charging $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month, depending on, your role and the size of the organization. The bigger the organization, the more complex. And now we're saying, okay, I charge $10,000 a month. And let me tell you, when I stop delivering value, you can simply let me know. My only stipulation is that it's a 60-day or a 90-day out, because the time I'm investing in you, and every hour is actually 4, right? Every hour in front of the client is at least 4. If you want to end our relationship, cool, you are on for another 2 or 3 months, which gives me the time to replace you as a client. I'm anticipating we're going to be together for a long time, so I am not out doing biz dev. Does that process, project, long-term engagement, and the client the whole time, you're not saying, well, for $120,000 a year, here's what I'm going to do. You're saying, here's what I'm going to do, and if you decide I'm valuable, then we'll have that conversation, and I charge $10,000 a month. Very different.
George, in order to humor this group, what you need to do now is update this chart, make it a function of the revenue of the client, as well as add the incentive fee alongside the 10K or whatever the number is.
And that, Steve, is a fabulous point, because of what Steve Cummings, last I knew, said the attorney, he was charging 1% at the deal table. And the magic is that he's saying to the client, and that's not a point coming out of your pocket. That is a point coming out of the investment banker's pocket. Miss Chad still on? Steve, Chad, you guys are M&A professionals. And I'm going to go to, I have a curated group I have a biosphere of investment banks to whom I'm saying, listen, you're going to charge 5 points, and here's why. Because I'm going to bring you a client that is deal ready. I'm going to bring you a client you are going to be able to do your job as a banker, not as a babysitter, hand holder, tantrum dealer. You are going to be able to simply be a banker, and I will make sure that the client stays focused, eye on the prize, is ready, has their books in order, etc. Deal? And that's what Steve is doing very, very, very successfully.
I'll say that niche has a huge role in how much effort it takes you to continually raise prices.
Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So like I don't accept clients that aren't owners of financial services firms because,
Okay.
and what that means is like the more I work with them, the more up market I move in that niche, the more I'm able to charge, and I have to get their attention.
Yeah. I wish, we need a Mike Garrison for the CPA world.
I was just thinking like, when you look at, there's some people in here that are like general practitioners that are working with a large variety of clients. And I don't. Like I abandoned that a long time ago, except for books and low value or low price stuff. But like, Steve, thank you so much. Great.
Thanks, Steve, man. Be good. Have a great day.
But like that would be my question to folks that are more general practitioners is how much friction are you experiencing versus what I'm doing? How much friction are you experiencing having to work within these different businesses, or are you not? I suspect some of you aren't experiencing any friction whatsoever.
Well, George, two of my best consulting clients have been CPA firms.
Awesome.
They brought me into, I actually had a law firm that brought me in to help navigate through some things.
Yeah. CPAs, guys. So the CPA industry.
Can we have a session about the CPA industry, chat, and what you have found so far? Because I know that we have mainly spoken about the financial/wealth advisors, and I think that's an excellent entree. So that's number one. And number two, we're talking earlier about Steve, and I know he has got an excellent model that in the exit space, but we probably need to flesh out what happened if the client is not ready to exit. So the 1% fee works perfect for Steve, and maybe, his outlook will be longer because if he worked with his company now, but their exit is not in 5 years, maybe he still can claim that 1%, assuming he continues working with a client. But it seems to me that model works best for companies that are about to exit. And so the 1% success fee that the investment bankers pay is immediate and it is relevant.
You got good contracts for that.
I'm sorry?
What was the comment, Mike?
You have to have some good contracts when you do that.
Yep.
Yes.
We've seen in the early days of this conversation, we saw a lot of heartburn and heartbreak on this exact topic. And that is what got Cummings, who was listening, to say, okay, I only work with business owners who are committed to selling their business to a third party. I mean, that is niche. And he deals, so if you don't want to do it this year, we're cool because our interests are aligned as long as you intend to do it. And he has a fallback position in the contract, but generally speaking, his qualifier, I like Mike's only financial services firm. Steve is only for business owners who are committed, who have an intent to sell within 5 years. Guys, we've hit the bottom of the hour. This was a fantastic conversation. I don't have to. Yes, we can, Tim. I'll get hold of Steve. He, by the way, he's voracious behind the scenes in consuming a lot of this stuff. Want to go around? Does everyone have a few minutes to go around and do key takeaways from this conversation? Would that make sense? Sure. Yes. Okay, great. Mike, you put your thumb up first. Fire away.
No, I was agreeing to the concept.
Chad, you put your hand up.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I think you've heard me say this a million times, George, is, look, follow the process. If you start winging things and shooting from the hip, I think a lot of times you start to lose the client and you start to lose that value. So whatever your process is, sales process, closing techniques, whatever it is, keep following that. It works.
Absolutely, Chad. Okay, that was fantastic. Eric, man, thank you.
Yeah, I have two. One is we should send Mike a coffee every Tuesday morning and invite him to this so that we get the Mike that we love. But my key takeaway was a reminder just that discernment/triage is important in the process. We gotta pay attention to that. I know it, but it's great to have a discussion around it because it reminds you how important it is.
Yeah.
I would say it's all about scouting, which is how we do triage as consultants.
Yeah.
And I will say once again, the number one skill. Like process is everything, Chad. Process is everything. But more and more, I spend my effort on the process to identify which clients will succeed, whether or not I'm involved. And that's the client I want. The client that's got the resources internally, human capital, money, everything. I'm looking for clients that are going to make it anyways. I have hopefully exited the section of my career where I'm losing my ass trying to save people that aren't going to die.
Love it. Joe, you're next on the Hollywood Squares.
So I'm going back and looking at my notes, but this speed to change, right? And we talked about earlier today about the Google and their resistance to change. So it used to be we had 75 years in which the change curve occurs, right? The S curve. And then it went to 15 years, and then it went 6 years. And I think, believe it or not, it's probably down to about a year and a half. When was the last time that organization changed? What was the position of the current owner in that role? So if you start thinking about previous experience will lead to future expectations, what about it that leads you to believe that they're going to be able to jump the shark, or so to speak, the S curve? And what can you drive out of that initial conversation that'll lead you to believe that have the tenacity to do what they need to do in order to avoid dying on the grapevine? And basically, so what is that individual done in the past that's going to lead a predictable increase? Because we can do that. We just have to ask a couple key questions. When was the last time ever? So think about an interviewing process.
Joe,
interviewing us. So like, I don't know.
Joe, you're making a fantastic point. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's an exciting point, because I glued that with what Eric said. And we're really talking about discernment as regards innovation. And we see examples. I mean, there are some really great examples right now of companies in our space that are presenting as innovating, who there's no there. Right? It looks like innovation, but we need to discern a meaningful innovation. Tim Silvana, who's in a bigger hurry? Joe, thank you. That was a great point. Tim Silvana was in a bigger hurry to get off the call.
Go ahead, Silvana. Great.
Well, the dessert, I'm the only woman, so go ahead, Tim. I'll finish it up.
Men first today. So that's equity, by the way. There were two things. One was the whole question that Mike opened with, and the premise of doing client selection, qualifying your clients first, like looking at price as a way, or maybe the best way, to qualify your clients. And so that whole thing sort of changes the normal paradigm, as opposed to what can I charge that they'll accept? It's like, what can I charge so I know they're good to work with, right? And then I also like what Eric opened with the condition. I think, Silvana, he was building on your question about the market and the disruption and how this is the best time. And I was thinking exactly the same thing. We're in an earthquake right now. At least the people around here are, where you and I are. It's an earthquake, and everybody's just hanging on to something until the shaking stops. And we don't know when the shaking is going to stop. But now is the time, like Mike said, and Eric said, now is the time to start building and emerging from that, so that you are the survivor, and we're the ones that can help them do that. So those are my two takeaways.
Yeah, some of the best companies are more interested now than they've ever been.
Good to know. I loved Mike's questions and the direction that he took the conversation. That was very thought-provoking. I love the idea of the triage. I'm very interested to find out what Tim and Larry and Mike, what you guys have been coming up with or refining based on, the process and the messaging and marketing. And I think this was a very cool conversation. Maybe we can have another conversation more in depth for maybe the CPA niche. I love the niche from Mike. That's very, very good qualifier. So maybe we can talk specifically about the CPA space and see what the difference is between the wealth and financial advisor working with them versus the CPAs, and what points can we make to turn them into our trusted COIs and people that can generate referrals.
Yeah.
George, I was going to ask for my money back, but Joe did show a hand-drawn chart at the end, so now I don't have to ask for my money back, because I was going to be really, really disappointed.
Hey, but it was a really good chart.
It was an outstanding.
These
charts are always good.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen one in a while, but it was there, and I'm with you, by the way, Joe. I think the change is happening
accelerating
so fast right now that it's creating, it's hard sometimes with the very best clients that you get the best results from. Those are also the hardest clients unless you're referred. those are the hardest clients to get traction with. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Out of chaos.
How to Thrive.
Lady out there, it's called Chief Innovation Officer, How to Thrive in Chaos. It's really good, well written. This guy, Nadia is her name, and she's very interesting to listen to, but she does a really good job with the flip charts. I've learned it from her. So, How to Thrive in Chaos.
Guys, listen, a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much. I do love this meeting, man. Or this conversation. It's not even a meeting, no agenda. I remember what happened when I proposed that maybe we have an agenda, and I was roundly shouted down. So this was great. I will see you guys. Have a great week. We're here to help. If there's anything we can do to help you guys, let us know. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you. Thanks to each and all of you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, George, for always being there.
Yeah, sure, man. That's what I want.
Everyone.
Be good, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.